Good day everyone, I am Sir Jerickson Eschua and welcome to Animation 2. So before we start our session for today, may I request all of you to please bow your head as we feel the presence of our Lord through this prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Creating basic animation in Flash. So for this module, we're going to discuss introduction to animation, introduction to frames, how to add frames, and even the modify frame properties. You may just browse the other topics later on. Okay, for the introduction to animation, one of the most exciting aspects of Flash is its animation features. You can animate objects, synchronize the animation with sounds, and even add backgrounds. You can also animate buttons, and we can do much more using your Macromedia Flash. After you complete a Flash animation, you can place it on your web page or distribute it for others to view. So how do we use animation? So you can use Flash animation to present a lively message or to simply entertain. Animations you create in Flash can make a website come to life. For example, you can create a cartoon to play in the site's banner or animate buttons for the users to click. You can also create animations for mobile phones, for company presentations, and more. How do animations work? Animations is simply a change that occurs between two or more frames in a movie. A change can be the placement of an object that moves slightly from one area on the other screen to another. It can be a change of color, intensity, size, or shape of an object. A little bit of animation history. In the early days of animating, cartoonists and other animators painted objects and scenes on cells, which are transparent sheets called celluloid. The cells are stacked to create an image. So this is similar on the layers of your Macromedia Flash. A camera then took a snapshot of that image to create a single frame. Okay? The animators use some of the cells for the next frame, such as backgrounds, and change other cells to create an object's movement across the foreground. Animation in Flash. Flash uses similar principles to create animations today. Instead of transparent cells, you can add content to the frames and the layers, and stack the layers to create a depth. Anytime you want to change the content, you can add keyframes to the timeline and vary the positions or the appearance of the content. So we have here two types of animation. We have the frame by frame and the twinned animation. So frame by frame animation is just as simple as the name implies. It creates an effect of movement by subtly changing the content's appearance from frame to frame. This is type of animation methods gives you a great deal of control over how the content changes across the Flash timeline. So on our discussions before, on the frame by frame, you can now use the different key poses and the in-betweens in the frame by frame animation. Okay, so twinned animations is the other method of animating. With this method or with Twinned animation, you tell the Flash to calculate the in-between frames from one keyframe to another. Flash draws the in-between planes of change to get from the first keyframe to the next. In this in-betweening frame is where the term twinned comes from. Twinned animation is faster, easier to edit, and consumes less file size. So I'll be presenting how to use twin animation later on. Okay, so let's proceed to frames. So frames are used to create illusion of motion and change across time. Frames are the backbone of your animation effects. When you start a new Flash file, it opens a single layer and hundreds of placeholder planes on your timeline. So we have here the frame rate, which indicates that we use 12 FPS. Okay, the higher the frame rate, the smoother the action will be. Frame types, you can have the different types of frames in the Flash timeline, such as your placeholder frame, your keyframe, your static frame, your twin frame, and so on. So these are indicated on the different icons. We have the placeholder frame. So the placeholder frame is merely an empty frame. It has no content. When your movie reaches an empty frame, it stops playing, with the exception of the first frame in a new layer and the remaining frames as all placeholders until you assign another frame type. A keyframe defines a change in animation, such as an object moving or taking on a new appearance. By default, Flash inserts a blank keyframe for you in the Flash frame of every new layer you add to it. Next, you also have the static frame, or regular frames, which displays the same content as the previous frame in the timeline. Twin frame is one way to create animation in a movie that allows you to calculate the number of frames between two keyframes to create a movement, which is also known as your twinning. Flash determines in-between positions of the animation object from one keyframe to the next. Okay, so aside from that, from our Macromedia Flash, you can also change the dimension of your stage. So here is a way on how you can change the dimension of it. So by default, we have 12 frames per second. You just need to double click this. Now you can change the height and the width of the dimension of your stage and your frame rate if you want to change that. Okay. On your timeline, we can have here the different types of frames. Okay, let's just see the different frames. Okay, so we have here a keyframe which appears with solid bullet in the timeline. So when you open a Macromedia Flash file, the default is a frame that has circle with no black on it. So that's what you call a blank keyframe. So a blank keyframe that has no added content yet it appears hollow bullet. This is an example of a blank keyframe. Okay, this is what you call a keyframe. And the in-between frames are contains content appear tinted or gray in the timeline. So this is called as your in-between frames. These frames. Hollow box precedes a keyframe, so meaning this is the ending of your keyframe. Okay. We also have here flash highlight selected black frames in black. So this is your selected frame, and the white part is called the empty frame that appears white. Okay. So how do we create a keyframe? So every time you put an object on your stage, that is considered as a keyframe. Now, how can we now add another frame? So we just need to add frame. So as you can see, it is preceded by a hollow box. It means this is your keyframe. This is the end of your keyframe. Now, let's try to add blank keyframe. Okay, so as you can see, when we move our playhead, okay, so we can see the keyframe, and then we have the blank keyframe. That is your indicator of it. Now, how can we create many in between? So you just need to adjust here. Okay, so these are your in-betweens of that particular keyframe. Actually, there is a shortcut key when you want to insert a keyframe or a blank keyframe. Oh, let's just remove this. So if you want to add frames, you just need to click F5. Okay, F5. If you want to add frames. If you want to add keyframes, you just need to click F6. That is your keyframe. And if you want to add some blank keyframe, you just need to click F7. Okay, so that's how you use our frames in Macromedia Flash. Let's proceed on how we now create different scenes. Okay, so by default, you are on scene 1. So how can we create a scene? So you just need to click Shift F2 to create a scene. So for example, this is your scene 1. You can then change it to introduction. It's up to you now on how to do it and how you rename your scenes. Okay, how can we now add another scene? You just need to click plus. That will be your scene 2, which will be your, it can be your title, for example. So we are on the title page. So for example, your title will be The Parable of the Mustard Seed. So that's will be on our scene 2. So we just need to adjust the size of this text so that it can be seen, the whole text, and we just need to click insert keyframe here. Insert keyframe. Keyframe. Here. Insert keyframe. Okay, we just need to remove this. And then on our introduction, it's just a circle. I guess we can just change its movement. Okay, we just need to remove this. Remove frames. Insert keyframe here so that it will move here. Okay, so the output will be moves there and the parable of the mustard seed. So that's how you create scenes on our Macromedia Flash. Now let's proceed with Flash symbols and instances. Okay, in Flash, symbol is a reusable element that you can store in the Flash library. You can repeatedly use it as a symbol throughout your movie by inserting an instance of the symbol in the frame in which you want to appear. So basically, when you duplicate a symbol, that is considered as an instance. So a symbol is a graphical element you store in the Flash library. A symbol can be an object you draw with the Flash drawing tool, a movie clip, or a graphic created in another program. Symbols can be used and can be a sound clip or a button. Flash instances, every time you copy a symbol, that is considered as an instance. The instance reference to the original size, and it is greatly affected on how you reuse the symbol. Okay, there are different types of symbols, and every time you reuse a symbol, you must specify how you want the symbol to behave. Flash classifies symbols or behaviors into 3 types. We have the graphics, the buttons, or the movie clip. So what is a graphic symbol? So these are those that is created in Flash with the drawing tool and can be used for creating animation in the Flash timeline. A button is an interactive button, or also known as rollover buttons, as symbols and reuse them by associating different actions to the same button. A movie clip are symbols that are simply mini movies that reside inside the main Flash movie file. Movie clips utilize timelines that are independent of main movie's timeline. So how can we now create a symbol using your object? So for example, okay, we can change this square into a symbol by selecting it. Okay, and then right click, and then we just need to convert this to symbol. So now we're going to convert this object into a symbol. So we're going to rename it as a square. So by default, we use a movie clip, but you can convert this into a button or a graphic. So you can just use the movie clip and then click OK. So once you do that, you can now see that our object is created into a symbol. So where can we see now the created symbol. So you just need to click Control L to see the library. So here is your symbol now. So this is a movie. Now, let's create a button. Okay, using our oval shape, highlight, then convert to symbol, right click, convert to symbol, and then we're going to create this as a button. Okay, so start button. Then click OK. Okay, that is a button. So as you can see, the icon is different from a movie clip and a button. How about a graphic? Okay, let's convert this into symbol. This is a circle. And we're going to change this into a graphic. Okay, this is a graphic. So the icon for graphic, this one. The icon for a sim a movie clip is this one, and the icon for a button is this one. So that is the difference between the three. Now, how can we now create an instance of the symbol? Okay, for example, we want to create an instance of the square. So what you're going to do now is just to say, select this and then put it here. That is considered as an instance of the square. An instance of the button can also be placed here. Now, what happens if I change the original symbol? Okay, let's change the color. So what we're going to do now is to double click the symbol. Let's change the color here. Let's change the color inside. Okay, what happens? It follows because it's just a duplicate of that symbol. Okay, so anything that you do here will follow to the other instances. Okay, so that's how we use the different symbols in Macromedia Flash. Creating animation by tweening using this module. So on this module, we're going to discuss how to use or create a motion tween, a spinning tween, a growing or shrinking tween, adjusting the opacity of a symbol, and create a shape tween. Okay, so the first one is your motion tween. So a motion tween is when you define 2 points of movement in the timeline with 2 keyframes and then let Flash calculate the in-between frames necessary to get from point A to point B. So let's have an example. So this is your object. You just need to insert keyframe here. And let's just move this object here. We want to move this from point A to point B using that motion tween. So right click on the first frame and then create motion tween. And then when we control enter it, it creates a movement. So that's how you use our motion tween. Now, I will be presenting to you about onion skinning. So onion skinning helps us to identify the in-betweens in the frame. So these are your in-betweens, right? So when you remove this, this is your first key pose and this is your second key pose. And these are your in-between frames. So how can we see that? Using the onion skinning. So this is the indicator of the onion skinning. So as you can see, we have here this different in-between frames from your first key pose to your last key pose. And we have here your in-between frames. Okay, so that's the purpose of what we call your onion skinning. This is onion skinning. To identify the different objects or the in-between frames between the 2 key poses. So that's how you do our motion tween. Now let's proceed to spinning tween. Okay, so how do we do a spinning tween? So you can create an animation effect that makes a symbol appear to spin using 2 identical keyframes and motion tween. You can tell Flash to rotate the symbol in between frames to create a spinning effect during the playback. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to delete this, remove the frames. We're going to insert a frame here on our frame 1. We're going to create a square here. This is a square. And we're going to convert this into a symbol. So we're going to convert the symbol, square, square. Okay, click OK, and then we're going to insert here a keyframe, and we're going to rotate the last our next pose. So we're going to rotate it and then rotate it until this one, and then we're going to create a motion tween. So using that one, we can now create an illusion that our object is rotating. So that's how you use our spinning tween. Okay. Next is how do we do a growing and shrinking tween? Actually, it's very easy to do this. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to remove this, remove frames, and we're going to insert a frame. Let's use a circle. And you just need to double click this, convert this into a symbol. Okay, movie clip, symbol 1, and then let's insert a keyframe here, and then move it here, and then we're going to adjust it to a bigger size. Okay, and then we're just going to create a motion tween, and then Control Enter. That creates a growing or shrinking tween. So that's how easy it is. Okay, so the key takeaway here is sometimes you need to convert this into a symbol for it to work. Okay, how about we want to change one shape to another? Okay, so what we're going to do, let's just draw, insert frame. Let's just draw a square, and inside here, let's insert a keyframe, and let's just draw a circle. And we're going to remove the circle on frame 15. I remove the square on frame 15 so that it will turn into a circle. So what we're going to do now is click here, and then we're going to click the shape tween so that our square will be converted into a circle. So Control Enter, and that's how you use our shape tween. Okay, so I hope it enlightens you on how to use the tweening. It's very useful if you want to move one object from point A to point B, change its shape, change its rotation, and so on. So that's how you use our tweening. How about what we call the opacity? So opacity is actually changing the actual color of your symbol. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a circle here. We're going to convert this into a symbol. Okay, and we can change the color to its alpha. So meaning, the alpha color can be changed into the desired color. If you wanted to make it darker or lighter, you can do that. So that's how you use our opacity in Macromedia Flash. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you have learned many things from our discussion. See you on our next lesson. Keep safe and God bless.